Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this joint session of the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee and the Public Safety Committee. Today, we have a work session that will review FY 25 to 30 CIP and capital budget public safety IT projects. We have some various public safety related IT projects that we're going to go over today. Does the Chair of Public Safety have any comments?
No, I just thank you, Rob and Dr. Terregas for this fine packet. And as I was pointing out earlier, this has been going on, I guess, since 2009. So when we said that this was going to be a continuous thing, I don't think we thought it was going to be quite this long and continuing. But I want to thank everyone for actually working on it. I see people in the room who have actually done the work, and I think that this is a very important point. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Ms. Frog, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. As you just stated, this is looking at 5 different IT projects that support the public safety services in the county. And I put a little bit of history in here. There was an umbrella project called the Public Safety System Modernization that was put in, I believe, 2009. And that was based off of a joint study with all the different public safety departments. And back then it was technology services and other stakeholders to make sure that they had a defined needs assessment and a replacement schedule and ensure that the technology that the county had met the public safety needs. So over the past 4 or 5 years, it's kind of morphed into they've kind of let the PSSM project kind of fade away other than the records management system for police, which is still in there. But the county executive's now doing separate standalone PDF projects for each of these different IT projects. And when I'm looking at these, I look at them together to make sure that things are working together the way they're supposed to. And I have 2 overarching concerns, which the executive shares too, to ensure continuity of operations, right? We can't afford to let these systems go down. We can't afford for radios not to work if a firefighter falls through a floor, right, during a fire, that type of thing. So it's both a safety issue for the community as well as a safety issue for the public safety workers. And the other thing is making sure that data is user-friendly. We are so much more reliant on data these days. You want much more robust data. You want disaggregated data. You want demographic data, and you want it fast. And not only do you want it fast, but you want it to be user-friendly so that we can get this information. Policymakers and other stakeholders can make these decisions more accurately and much more quickly. So those are the 2 things that I'm looking at. Going through these projects, and I'll just start going through them one by one for you. Go ahead.
I'd like to make one very quick comment, and that is that in the wisdom of the county executive many years ago, the reason for consolidation and the reason for having a public safety system modernization was that you have 2 departments in front of you. You have the public safety agencies and you have TEBS, the Technology Enterprise Business Solutions. Sometimes there's dynamic tension between the 2 departments. One technology solution may not work well for the end user. At the same time, the end user may have ideas that the technology people say, no, that's not just right. We've missed a little bit of that by separating and by organizing things either around TEBS or around the public safety agencies. So just keep in mind the fact that we have to constantly make sure that the 2 departments, TEBS and the public safety agencies, are well balanced. Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? Why was this disentangled?
I think I'll give it to the executive for that.
Just because I guess we have the background and you're raising concerns here. I'm just curious. Yeah.
The thinking is to provide more insight into the specifics of the program so that it isn't this black hole where all of the programs come in and we don't really have, the granular level look at what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So it's to provide some sunshine, to provide insight into what we're doing on a more granular level.
Great, thank you.
However, because the world is becoming interconnected and one project needs to talk to another project, one database needs to get data from a different database, and that's why I'm raising the caution. It's not a concern, it's a caution to constantly ask the departments for that kind of interoperability play.
So for the first project for the county radio life cycle replacement, this is an ongoing project. Well, it was new in FY23, and it provides for the phased replacement of voice radio systems that are used primarily by public safety agencies, police, fire, sheriff, corrections, but it's also used by the Department of Transportation and Park and Planning. There have been several other projects in the CIP historically that have performed the same thing. This current project is replacing radios that have reached their end of expected 10-year service life. The recommended changes in this project, total project costs increased by $6.8 million or 14%. The increase reflects inflation adjustments as well as adding 2 fiscal years to the ongoing project. The executive advises that the general terms of the contract permit purchase of radio equipment, both parts or radios, at a 28% discount. However, the county is currently using a COG purchase agreement that provides a 32% discount for radios. The normal life cycle of the radios is 10 years. The radios that the county is replacing right now were purchased in 2011, and they reached their end of service life in 2021. There's a schedule of historic costs and recommended costs for FY25 on page 4. There's also a pilot project that's included for about $148,000, and this is testing 20 non-public safety radios from an alternative manufacturer. Currently, the county deals with Motorola almost exclusively, and to see whether or not radios from a different manufacturer might meet the county needs. The executive advises this program is being used to test the feasibility and cost effectiveness of another radio brand. The pilot's designed to test both the interoperability of the radio brand, a different brand, and with existing public safety radio system infrastructure and current vendor radios. Question that came up when I was looking at this, and the Joint Committee may wish to understand better, is if this pilot project is successful given the current 10-year radio replacement cycle, it seems the county would have to phase in replacements from another vendor several years in the future. Wouldn't it be more prudent to test radios closer to replacement to ensure that technology is current? And it's also helpful to understand what projected savings may be if a different system requires its own data servers, software, parts, and potentially other support staff, supplies, and services to build it out.
Before I turn it over to Chair Katz, I did have a clarifying question, Ms. Farag. When you talk about, so you say that we're currently doing the COG purchase agreement at a 32% discount, but the county exec's office is suggesting we do something different that only gives us a 28% discount? No, okay, I think I was getting confused there. Okay, so what is the suggestion before us?
We're still planning to use the 32% COG
Okay.
discount. That's, I mean, it would be foolish to not.
Okay, that's what I was thinking when I read this.
What was the 28%?
Yeah, what's this?
The county's contract with Motorola directly, we're bridging the contract from COG instead of using the county's own negotiated contract.
Why does the county have a negotiated contract?
Okay, so
That's
we're,
before my time.
okay, so let me just understand, yeah, go ahead.
Jerry Adcock here with the TEBS Group. We had a contract in place, and we purchased everything on the equipment for the current system, et cetera. That was a 28% discount is what we're referring to.
Okay.
Since that time, the National Capital Region has negotiated a better deal for parts and services at 32%. That's where we buy Motorola equipment off of that instead. That's what that is. The radio pilot is not connected to either of these contracts.
But I just want to make sure we are doing the COG purchase.
We are
agreement.
doing the COG
Okay.
purchase. Since it's been available, we've been using that purchase agreement for the last couple of years, yes.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Chair Katz?
I think it should be noted, we have fire sirens or something
Right.
coming up this week. Hey, the other side, thanks. It shows you how technical I am. So first off, are the 10 years, is that still workable? I mean, can you get parts for these items and whatnot?
Yeah, what the vendors do is that they provide the radios to a certain point. They say, all right, we're going to keep manufacturing up to date X, but we'll still have parts available for out years past that, usually about 5 years. Okay, that's where you can get it, but you can't get new radios itself. If I need to get a new battery or a new antenna, mic, et cetera, maybe the case cracked, I don't know. These kind of things you can do, but the radio as a whole, they start changing the technology to bring it up to current specs.
All right, so would we be wise to say, rather than go 10 years, that we would go 8 years or whatever? Is that, does 10 years still work, is my question?
Yes, 10 years still work.
Okay. And then if we went to a different manufacturer, I'm assuming that there's an interoperability to them, right?
There is a level of interoperability based on P25 technologies, yes.
And I guess Ms. Farag had pointed out about the various dead spots or whatever that are we still experiencing any of that? And if we went to a new manufacturer, would that help or hurt?
It's not going to change anything. We are at a 98.34% complete coverage at a certain level. It's called DAQ 3.4 in the county and extending 3 miles beyond the county borders. This was all based on the radio system project I worked. The other radios that are being proposed for the pilot would still operate on the same technology, same antennas. That's the whole point of the interoperability since 9/11. But the idea is that certain features you will not be able to cross over because they're proprietary from each vendor. So it's coming down to basic use of the radio, push to talk, change the channel, change the volume.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Councilmember Luedtke?
Thank you. So staying on that theme and perhaps getting some feedback from our representatives from the police department and fire and rescue on this too. There's a couple pieces when you're talking about technology contracts and for things like this, like the radios, where you've discussed that there are some standardized things, right? But the data or other information that the departments have is not apples to apples with each vendor. Is that correct?
Yes. I mean, in
Okay.
simple terms, yeah.
Right, and so to the extent that there's a pilot program to test something other than what has been traditionally used across the county and across multiple jurisdictions and the state too, am I correct? That the state is also on Motorola? Yeah. There is a significant cost that may not be as ascertainable right now for the servers, the systems, et cetera, to make them function in the ways that the departments would need. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Infrastructure to support, yes.
Right. And then as a separate piece, under current operating conditions, the different data systems that each of our departments has, whether it's fire and rescue or police or corrections, don't talk well to one another. Is that is my understanding correct?
The data systems I don't handle as far as, I mean, the radios all talk the same, whether it's
The radios do.
whatever organization. The data systems such as, I'm going to pick a couple, maybe CAD and CGIS and whatever, that's not my area, sorry.
Okay. Is there a way under the way the system, how to say this the right way? Because we're here in a much more modern posture than we were in 2009 when the decisions were made to separate these apart and look at them that way. And from the state's perspective, we are also in a different posture, meaning the state finally decided we need to make sure for cybersecurity and for other reasons our systems are all kind of meeting certain criteria and certain things. But from an agency operability perspective, there has to be agility baked into the data systems so that you can, in fact, do the things that, as Ms. Farag mentioned, where policymakers are waiting for information on certain things. If you do not have existing systems that can be made more agile in order to address those needs, whether they're asks by us or legislated to be collected, that puts you in a very difficult position. Is that right? Okay. And so what do you all need in order to increase your agility on that front?
Good morning. Darren Frank, Assistant Chief, Montgomery County Police. So as far as the radio system, our radios are very robust right now. I think the pilot's a good thing just to see what other options are out there to see if maybe there's some money savings to be had. That's very important to what we do, but also the public safety aspect, as you said, does it meet our needs? And so the pilot, I think, will help to answer those questions. Going to the data systems, yes, we have a lot of systems that are old and that, quite honestly, we're going to talk about one today, Crims, where they're out of business. We've brought it in-house, right?
Right.
One of the problems that we confront in public safety is that the business environment isn't breaking down the doors to write the things that we need, because there's more money to be had writing stuff for Charles Schwab and whatever other company, JetBlue. So what we've seen as of late, a couple things. There's been a huge transition between what was technology that couldn't do all the things that we are being asked to do, but at the time it made sense. Now what we're seeing, and we're going to talk about this a little bit when we get to the RMS system discussion, is over the last couple years we have seen our vendors come up with solutions that just blow away what was there before, and they allow better ability to communicate with each other. Like right now, one of our things is we wish CRIMS and our RMS system would talk better, because it would be more efficient for the officers when they're going to 7 locks. It would also allow us to pull data better. We wish that our current RMS system could be searchable and have many, many more fields for collecting what now we are being told that is important data that we just didn't think of before, because no one had asked the questions. So like right now, for example, I had to, my team in our information technology division had to hand search our report system to find some data on things. We want to get away from that. We believe there's solutions nowadays. We're finally catching up in police technology, because it is so important and because a lot of money has been put there. But yes, we would love all of our systems to talk together, and that's what we're looking for when we do at least under Chief Jones and with me, we're looking for technology that talks to each other and that is, as you put it, agile, that we can go in and search in a meaningful way. You know, we've heard a lot of stuff about AI, correct? Good and bad. There's some good to be had, and being able to apply that in these new systems would be terrific. Because when we do get the question that we didn't think of, although we're working hard to think of all those questions now, the AI would help us go into these systems and find that information better.
Okay. And from your perspective?
Mike Baltrowski, Fire Rescue Technology. So from my perspective, Jerry said it really well, that the radios themselves are based on the Project 25 standard, right? That's a national standard. Every agency nationally is trying to meet that standard. So all of them, from a baseline standpoint, will work at that baseline, whatever that Project 25 baseline may be. There are those other features that we're very concerned about that may not work from vendor to vendor, may work in one vendor, may not work in another vendor. Some vendors do that very well, some do it very poorly, right? All of them meet that P25 standard, which is really important to us. One of the things that we've done through the PSSM project, through TEBS, it is make sure that departments can interoperate very well in Montgomery County. Our radio system is a great example of that. Our CAD system is a beautiful example of that.
Right.
We can interoperate. We're all operating kind of off that same sheet of music. From the RMS perspective, fire rescue struggles just like the police department does. And RMS is tough because nobody wants to build that widget, right? Nobody wants. The fire rescue currently has an in-house built RMS system, and we struggle to find somebody that can do that better than we can internally, right? And we just put out an REOI last year trying to find somebody, and we struggle, right? And that is, we're still looking for that because we'd love to have that Katz solution that everybody talks about. We want that more than anybody because we don't want to have to maintain that stuff from a coding level.
Right.
But unfortunately, it is tough to find a vendor that does that as well as we have come to expect it. So from our perspective, we need to be more agile in the records management world. We absolutely do. The CAD system and the radio system, hats off to TEBS. They've done a phenomenal job, and they are phenomenal systems. So,
Great. Thank you.
Great. All right. One more thing on the radio life cycle replacement. Chair Katz.
When we're talking about the alternate manufacturer, since we're getting 32% or whatever it is this week from COG, would the alternate manufacturer have been involved with, that they would have bid on it from COG? Would we be saving money to do this?
Actually, I'm going to defer to him because he's a COG leader.
Wow.
Lucky you.
Yeah.
the cooperative purchasing agreement, that's a lot to say. That purchase agreement that was written by COG is for both major vendors of land mobile radios. It covers both of them. They negotiated that over a handful of years. A bunch of folks, some of them in this room, sat on the selection committees for that contract. And frankly, you won't see that contract touched anywhere else in the country. It is an incredibly done piece of work. So obviously the 32%, like we talked about, but that does cross vendors. It's not just a single vendor. There's different percentages for vendors that I don't have in front of me, but it does cross vendors. And using that, it's kind of a regional thing, right? We know that there's about 195,000 subscribers, radios, in the National Capital Region.
Right.
That contract makes it easier for everybody in this room and everybody across the region to purchase multiple vendors, multiple radios, multiple devices from that.
So it's not just Motorola from COG?
It's a CPA, it's a cooperative purchasing agreement.
Thank you.
Council President Friedson, then Councilmember Mink.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you to our regional counterparts and colleagues. I think it's great when the region can work together through COG and negotiate better deals for taxpayers. So job well done on that. We appreciate it. Certainly we're benefiting from that. The 28% discount was a good discount. 32% is better than that. So that's very strong. And it shows when we leverage the National Capital Region what we can do in conjunction with one another. I'm glad that we're here having this conversation, I will say, because a little bit less than 4 years ago, we were in this same room talking about this system and the challenges that it was facing. And we were at the point where it was basically being held together through really hard work from very dedicated teams, but with bubblegum and duct tape, it felt like, which was totally unacceptable for the life and safety of first responders and of county residents and of people who are relying on the government to protect them every day, including the people who are doing the protecting. And we're much better than that. Over 98% coverage levels. The commitments that were made, if we moved forward and were thoughtful and invested in the right way and actually moved the needle on this, you have fulfilled that. And so I just want to express my appreciation to that. You only know when these things don't work, when they don't work, and it's a catastrophe. We take for granted when communication systems and public safety work well because everything is fine. It's the moment that they don't work in an emergency where there's loss of life, where people are put at risk, where life and safety become major challenges. So this just really is important work. I just wanted to pinpoint a couple of the staff points that were made, and I'm not questioning you, Jerry, but I just want to better understand. So the way that you described it, this is, it's a pilot program for a very small number of radios proportionally. It'd be helpful to kind of understand how many this is talking about versus what the total system is, which I'm not quite clear on. I just know it's a much smaller number. And then understand, as you described it, the interoperability is based on core functions, volume, channel, microphone, on-off switch, et cetera. All the other bells and whistles are proprietary. So what you'd actually be, I assume of the two major manufacturers in this department, they meet the basic thresholds of volume and of on-off switches. So I'm just kind of a little bit curious, given the scope of this pilot program, which seems really small to me, how do we evaluate whether or not this is a better system or not? And then the second piece of it is then what would be the cost of switching? But the first question is how do you even evaluate when the only things that are interoperable with the actual public safety folks that aren't included in this pilot program that are in the legacy system, are such core functions that, they would be below the minimum qualifications for anybody to be even in the conversation for us to contract with.
And that's valid points, and I think the way to look at it, one is the reason of the size. We said about 20 radios. With 20 radios, I can tell what's going to occur here on a system. We can tell what we're doing. We can talk to each other. My team would have a couple radios, of course, being at the radio shop. However, we were looking at piloting with a public service unit who is not life safety on that issue. And that way, if there is some kind of concerns, something doesn't work right, whatever, I'm not impacting life safety. When I say public service, I'm talking about I could do it with the folks in DOT with the snow plows and leaf collecting trucks, some supervisors out there, just to talk and see how it works among them, and find out what some of the pitfalls are, and we can monitor that on our system. Is there a change in functionality? Yes. Where we have capabilities right now, and we're getting ready to implement, for example, with text messaging and also location services, which were things that we paid for in the current Motorola system that we bought that went live 3 years ago this month. Those functions are proprietary, like with any system. I don't care if it was Harris, if it was E.F. Johnson, or if it was Motorola. They have proprietary things they built in there because that's above the P25 standards. Okay, yes, P25 is basically the turn it on, be able to talk, change your channel, and we're all talking on the same frequency. And that's what its purpose is under P25, born out of 9/11. I don't know if you recall any of that, with the fact that we had, even down at Pentagon, you had 20 different departments there and 20 different types of, radio systems, and they couldn't talk to each other. And therein lies the problem. That's where P25 was born of. As far as being able to test and tell what it's going to cost, well, part of it is that infrastructure. When I say infrastructure, I'm talking about servers to hold the radio management software, because you got to be able to program the radios. You have the training that we're going to need in order to make sure that my staff, who are responsible for radios, to be able to program the radios and know what to do with them and troubleshoot them if there is a problem. There is some parts and components that you need to have in place, so if something fails. This is what we have currently in place with Motorola system, but you need to know, these things all take a cost, and you can extrapolate out from that what it would be if you did a larger number. An example is that we have 450 radios in ride-on buses alone, that if in the time when they're ready to replace at their life cycle, you can replace those with another radio. Okay, we'll see what that would take. And you can extrapolate out based on that. Certain costs are already known at that point, but then you can say, as parts and service contracts and maintenance contracts, those things will go up, of course, as you add in the numbers of radios.
So Ride-On would be a good example. At what point is the Ride-On contract?
They bought their radios in 2020, at the end of 2020 also. 2021, they were buying in that range, and that's when they received their radios. So on a 10-year life cycle, that puts them at 2030/2031. DOT, who got all their radios right before we cut over with the new system, was in the fall of 2020. So 2030 would be their 10-year life cycle time.
And then is this the only pilot program, or is this the start of pilot programs that you're going to be doing to test?
Right now, this is the only one that we have been funded or trying to get funding for. And it was suggested that we try E.F. Johnson radios.
Got it. Okay. Well, I'll just say I appreciate that you're doing that. In my old job doing procurement at the state level, the technology contract for life was always a concern, that you get stuck in one technology and that there really is no reasonable case for a new technology to come in because it's so disruptive. And then when you add on life safety issues, it adds exponential numbers of layers to that concern of a technology for life, and whether we're getting the best deal, whether we're having the best technology, whether it is doing the things that we want it to do. So I understand the concern. I appreciate that you're moving this direction. My personal view is this pilot is so small that we're not really going to get any significant enough data to understand whether it would work at a large scale with the bells and whistles of the new technology. And we're doing it at a point where the bells and whistles are going to change. To staff's point, by the time we replace it in 2030, 31, through 35, AI and other things will have completely changed the type of technology that we do. So my hopes and suggestion would be, at some point, if this meets the basic threshold with this small number, which is mostly going to be done with your team and with some folks in one department that isn't life-saving, like you had mentioned, like snowplows, that you roll it out as a pilot program in one entire department, in one entire area, and see, at least within that department, you can then use the bells and whistles, see how they work, even though they won't communicate with other folks on it, and then have a sense of what the infrastructure would costs would look like, and how much it would cost to move forward. You'd also get a sense of, in a larger department, or area, how challenging it would be to move systems, which would give us a better sense. So that's not before us today, but I just wanted to suggest that for moving forward, I think that would put us in a realistic, fair comparison for you to determine, does it make sense to change? What's the cost? What's the risk? Is it worth it? And for us to weigh that at a later date. But I think for now, this is a step in the right direction, and it makes sense.
And I think, I appreciate your points on that. And I think what's important to note, though, is that if I was to try to use the same features that we have in the current system on these pilot radios, I'd need another system because it is proprietary. Okay, so if I wanted to go use the text messaging and location services, okay, I have to have something that talks to that, meaning another infrastructure as a whole at 26 or 22 sites. If I want to just use the basic radio because it's not something of a life safety type of issue, whether I can do replace a whole department such as DOT at 350 radios just on snow plows and another 200 on back folks, also other ancillary departments. And we could do that, but then there is a cost associated with that. I mean, and to get the full numbers, that's where I can extrapolate the data once we know exactly what it takes to put this together, even at a small number. But I think getting a larger group would also help in a way, but there's a cost.
You need more than the radios. You need the infrastructure to start. So that, to me, that even more so makes the case that if this meets the basic threshold, the next step for me, if we really wanted to do a true, test, would be to find a department that is large enough to justify infrastructure investments, but small enough that it isn't such a big commitment that we're, giving away the store, and then determining whether or not it's better or not. Doing that for, 10 years in that department, and then deciding, do you then go back? Do you change? Is this an improvement? And then slowly with the next items. I mean, I think diversifying to a certain extent makes sense if the company that you have gets stale and the technology isn't improved, or if it goes out of business or it changes leader, I think there's a lot of risk with putting all of our eggs in one basket. So I think at least having a pathway to move forward makes sense. So thank you for that. I appreciate your thoughts on that. I'll yield back.
Councilmember Mink.
Thanks. First, this is seconding what everyone said. This is an extremely important piece of technology, and we want to make sure that we're not getting behind the ball on it. Absolutely. Could somebody lay out the landscape regionally of the radio technology being used? Is there like a jurisdiction that's doing it really well? I assume this is a conversation that we're seeing in other places as well. So is there a model that we're looking at? What are folks wrestling with in terms of addressing these same questions? Do we know across the region here?
Tag team with you on this one because of the cost of my.
Thanks, Jerry. So regionally, as explained earlier, the region is primarily a Motorola customer.
Right.
Now the feds, whole different side. They're a Harris customer. They're an L3 Harris customer primarily. But all of these radios, the biggest thing for everybody to remember is all of these radios interoperate at a basic level, right? I've already said that a couple times, but the important thing to understand is from the PTT perspective, from the generic functions on the radio, whether it's with the U.S. Capitol Police on a really bad day, or whether it's with each other regionally, we can communicate. And we do that through regional agreements. So we have a bunch of regional MOUs. We share each other's information. The conversation that's happening regionally now is one of making sure that we maintain interoperability. The level of interoperability in the National Capital Region is untouched anywhere else in the country. It's just a flat-out fact. Everybody, including the feds, comes to us to say, how do you do it, so that we can kind of explain. And we do that through many committees, as you well know, and many heartbreaking conversations about what's right, what's wrong, what's indifferent. The conversation about vendors is a tough one because we don't want to give up features in lieu of giving up a vendor. So some of those features are not what I call API-able, right? I can't just write an API that'll link these things together, right? They're just not that simple. Some of these features, as Jerry mentioned, a really good one is location services. That is proprietary to each vendor, and some vendors don't do it at all. So it's really important that when I have a firefighter that responds to a call in Prince George's County, Maryland, that those location services work, because he may be operating with Prince George's County units on a Prince George's County incident as a mutual aid or an automatic aid type of environment. So if we cross vendors and that stuff doesn't work, if we have one radio, they have another, that could potentially cause a problem. That's why regionally, we have monthly conversations about how we can remain interoperable. We talk about things like minimum feature sets. That's a very large argument we have all the time, because those things cost money, right? If one jurisdiction wants widget A, the other jurisdiction says, oh, that's not important to me, but if it's important to us as a whole, then we have those conversations, i.e. why that COG, Cooperative Purchasing Agreement, came to be in the first place, so that we could all kind of pay the same money for the same type of feature sets. So we do have that conversation on a regular basis. The Council of Governments, through all these committees, did a really, really good job of looking at specifically L3 Harris and Motorola and comparing apples to apples, and then giving the jurisdictions kind of the information they needed to proceed. But what Jerry's doing in the pilot will tell us what expectations are not being met, right? Some things will work, some things won't work. And we need to know that so we can kind of push it regionally. Montgomery County is a driver regionally of a lot of things, right? We're very lucky that we are one of the people in the driver's seat. We're not sitting in the back of the bus. We are driving the bus. So everybody kind of looks to us to say, what are we doing and how are we doing it? And this is a really good project to kind of see where we're at.
So I think to answer part of your question there, when you said, who else is doing this well that we could model? It's the other way around. People model us.
Right. So so the timing of this pilot program is part of that, something that is, that the timeline here, if we did not do this pilot now, would that be kind of messing with the timeline of what you all have worked out with our partners across the region here, where you're like, we're going to try this out and then we can see if.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Not necessarily at all. I mean,
Okay.
in fact, our partners are all actually moving. We're being a little conservative when it comes to our radio subscribers. Our partners are moving to that next technology, right, what we call radio over IP. That scares us at a level here in Montgomery County, as it should. Scares us a bunch of things, right? Interoperability, maintenance, redundancy. We could go on for hours. But there's a lot of things that concerns us of, and it's causing problems. So we're not taking the driver's seat in that. We're kind of taking the passenger seat in that, looking at what happens, seeing what bugs kind of work out. And a lot of our folks in Montgomery County sit on national committees as well that reflect that, so that we can kind of see where that technology is going, as in not to jump right in, but to jump in cautiously. So our subscribers and our neighbor subscribers still remain interoperable, and that will not change.
Okay. And then the infrastructure question that the council president brought up, is that something that concerns you at all? Or is this first pilot to basically see if it would be worthwhile to do like a next level, larger scale second round of a pilot that would include some infrastructure changes potentially? Or how are you thinking about that?
You would have to look at it in that sense. And once you get the initial data, and then you can say, okay, do we carry this forward? What is it? Is there a good ROI on this? And your cost benefit analysis on this is good. To say it's worthwhile based on all the other things you have to add behind the scenes. It's not just a portable radio in my hand. And so that's what when I refer to infrastructure, it encompasses a lot of things. Encompasses people, training, equipment. What do I have to put at antenna sites 22 times around the county, plus a couple control centers?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, any other questions on radio replacement? All right, I'm not seeing any, so I think we can move on from that. And I just do want to say thank you for all your work at COG and everything else. I can tell you, having sat on the board and being board chair, that Montgomery County as a leader comes up constantly in those conversations. So I just want to thank you for your leadership there. All right, I think we're moving on to the Dickerson Radio Tower.
Yes, this project is dealing with the 22 tower system that Council President Friedson mentioned that was implemented, I think, 3 years ago now. I just wanted to be clear because I got a couple of questions from internal staff about this. There is currently a Dickerson radio tower. It is working, it's functional, it's on top of a smokestack of a power plant that either has stopped functioning or is going to stop functioning soon, and they were going to raise it, demolish it. So when this project was originally put in the CIP, it had $2 million in FY22 to build a $450 communications tower near the public safety radio system equipment shelter at that same area. This has shifted a little bit, and the question of how they're going to go about land acquisition is kind of up in the air. It's my understanding the executive is now directly negotiating with the Gen On power plant folks to see whether or not they can just do a long-term lease of that current smokestack. And I don't know what the current status is of those negotiations. However, the current lease does expire in September 30th of this year. So it's important that the Joint Committee better understands the timing of any needed construction. And if the county has to build a tower elsewhere and has to move the existing radio equipment shelter, will there be additional costs beyond the $2 million? If this tower is delayed, again, I'm worried about continuity of operations. The microwave backhaul has the capability to reroute on the alternate paths around the disruption if needed. And through another initiative, TEBS indicates they can add alternative communications path through a Germantown site. So that 22-tower system was supposed to be self-healing in case one tower went down anyway. So you do have that security if they can't get this tower functional as quickly as possible. But it would be helpful to better understand what's the lease status at this point or land acquisition status.
Sure. Thank you. Again, one of my projects. But the land right now, they've been back and forth. It went through a brokerage. I think they changed hands over there at that site. They are tearing down the incinerator infrastructure that they had there and buildings. The smokestack is still there. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. Been up on the mountain up there and seen the smokestack way off. But that's a landmark. It's actually a pilot landmark, by the way. But that's where we are currently located with our antennas at 450 feet. And that's what we would need, at least that tower height, if we were to move someplace else, because we have to get over power lines. It is the location, terrain, that kind of stuff. In order to do that, we would also end up picking up and moving our shelter to the, said new location if we had to acquire different land. They have identified property on that land that if we wanted to move and take over, possess that land, we could. It's what I need is about 1,000 square feet. It's a 100 by 100 compound. That's standard on all of our sites. And then, of course, the access road to get to it, which would be as part of the property up there and get egress. As far as the actual negotiations, I know that our real estate department is working to get a 5-year, year-over-year lease right now as they work through all the details between brokerage firms and what can we do and, where do we want to go and what they want to do with the property up there and does the smokestack have to come down? The smokestack is not active. It has not been for a couple of years. It was inspected a few years ago. It's solid. That's a big structure. That thing's like 600, 700 feet tall and very thick, which is nice because it's not going too far. And we're able to mount antennas. And also, as there's another person up there, which is Pepco, they're on that same stack. So there's an opportunity there to actually rent back to them if we own the stack and get some income to the county from that after all the years of Pepco getting it from us. So there is opportunities there. But that's where the leasing is right now. So if we had to move, it would include building a new structure, about a 450-foot structure in order to meet the terrain demands, and then picking up and moving the shelter. So I needed a new foundation point to put that on.
And timing, do you have a sense of where we are in the process?
It's kind of been back and forth on it to get an exact time. I do not have it at this moment because they are still working with the different brokerage firms to negotiate lease, and it's been a very slow process with them. They are at least working on the lease to make it either long-term or purchase, so that both of those avenues have been approached with the owner.
Any other questions? No, not seeing. Chair Katz?
He was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He was
Chairman
leading
Scanlon.
you.
Oh, sorry. I
I
missed
was
you.
just going to add that part of the reason we're pushing this out is just if there's an opportunity to purchase the tower and we don't have to spend $2 million building a new one, we thought it prudent to wait a little bit longer.
Great. Thank you for that. All right, not seeing any questions on this one, then we can move on to the next item, which is, we've already started talking about this, the Correction and Rehabilitation Information Management System, the CRIMS upgrade. Ms. Frog, you want to take us through this one?
Yes, and I just wanted to extend Director Stevenson's apologies. He had another meeting that he could not miss.
okay.
So the CRIM system in the jail is a arresting and booking system that acquires all the data that the police officers are inputting when a person is arrested and booked. They had originally had a third-party commercial off-the-shelf solution years ago. However, the vendor failed to perform on that, so the county acquired a solution that's maintained by TEBS at this point. And the existing solution has reached a point where it requires an upgrade to meet county enterprise security standards and remain useful to the 20-plus local, state, and federal agencies that are using the application, including the police, the sheriff, the fire department. CRIMS is a critical 24/7 system, and it allows all jurisdictions that have arrest power in the county to process arrests and warrants in a timely fashion within Maryland statutory requirements. The change here is total project costs remain the same at $365,000, and it's funded with current revenue, but the recommended PDF is shifting $100,000 out to FY25 to reflect that the county has contracted to work on a low-code solution. The project is expected to be completed by December 2024, and it'll upgrade the existing solution rather than build new. This project was just added last year as an amendment, and at that time, it was my understanding that TEBS was exploring whether or not they could go after another COTS or commercial off-the-shelf system from an outside vendor, or whether TEBS would build something themselves. It would be helpful. I'm not totally clear on whether or not this is building a more robust system or just addressing security upgrades. This is one area where it would be extremely helpful to have much more robust data with the demographic information, booking, time somebody stays in jail, that type of thing. That's accessible. And as Assistant Chief Frank mentioned, it would be really helpful if this system could talk to their pending records management system. Just because the data requirements that policymakers want are much more robust than they were even 5 years ago, and we need it to be user-friendly and accessible. I very much appreciate Chief Frank's staff going through records by hand to get information, but it would be wonderful if they could just key in and report writing requests and get this information to you in 5 minutes. So it would be helpful to better understand really what the scope of this is in terms of security upgrades, and whether or not we could take another look to see if it could provide the data that everybody's asking for now.
And I know Director Stevenson isn't here, but does anyone else speak to this project?
So last year, the discussion was whether to replace or whether to go with a low-code upgrade to the system. We needed to evaluate whether or not it was even feasible to do a low-code upgrade. What we discovered is that it was, so we went with the cheaper option of just upgrading what we have. On the technical side of that, I don't have a whole lot more information, but this project was always going to take at least 18 months. So we're not terribly surprised that there's been a little bit of spillover on the last 100,000 for completing it. There were just other projects. Yeah.
Hi, Mike Knuppel. Unfortunately, the person that can answer that question, she's out today sick.
Oh, okay.
So her name is Lisa Henderson. She's really involved with this day-to-day activity.
Yeah, we know, yeah.
And, unfortunately, she can't make it this morning. So she's really the best person that we could provide any feedback.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ms. Raga.
We can follow up with this if you want. We can bring it back either during operating budget or just as another standalone joint GOPS.
Yeah, I think we should, and maybe send over,
You'll be able to answer any questions.
yeah, to Ms. Henderson and Director Stevenson, the questions that were raised. Any other additional questions? Not seeing any, and maybe in the interim, somebody can shoot us over a memo, and then we can proceed there. So appreciate. Yeah, people get sick. I have other things.
Send her our best,
yes, please do. So I think with that one, then we'll come back to CRIMS at another time and delve into that. Then the next item we have was the public safety server hardware upgrade.
This is a new project and it's $900,000. It'll replace servers and data storage that support the public safety virtual private network and provide services for public safety clients. In reality, it's supporting the Public Safety Communications Center and the alternate Emergency Communications Center. They handle the 911 calls for service. They've advised that these servers are almost 10 years old, and the executive advises that component failure is increasing. And I actually spoke to Mr. Knuppel a little bit before this work session, and he was able to explain to me, but it would be helpful to better understand why cloud-based storage is not being used and what safeguards are in place for both system reliability and security during this transition. And additionally, the project is funded with current revenue. Is the executive using 911 fees to fund any of these upgrades? And if so, how much of the total project costs are covered by state revenues? You have extraordinarily short staffing right now in the Emergency Communications Center, so it is imperative to ensure that any types of data upgrades or transitions are done really systematically with as many safety mechanisms in place as possible to make sure that that 911 system is getting answered as quickly as we can answer. So I'll turn it over to the executive if they can say a little bit about reliability and security as well as the funding streams.
I'm going to be talking to the funding stream, but as far as the replacement of the servers, this is really like a phase 2. We got funding, I think, 2 years ago for the core 911 system that's provided by Motorola, the P1 CAD. These are the servers that interface into that. As Susan mentioned, these are islands. They're completely islands outside of the environments. They're completely contained. So the servers provide additional interface functionality to the core product. It also provides a security cyber from people trying to get into it. It also interfaces with NDCs out in the field. So it's a set of servers that provide additional services that interface with the core CAD system. So it's really the second phase of that. So once these servers are replaced, the entire unit or the entire island is complete. And as Susan mentioned, there's 2 islands. There's one at the PSSC and there's one at the AECC.
Great. And I know another question that Ms. Farag brought up is why not go to a cloud-based system?
Well, many of these services that are currently there aren't offered as a cloud solution, but if they are available at some time in the future, this would make us whole for the next 5 to 6 years. Okay. So then we would look at some type of cloud solution, potentially a cloud solution in the future. But as you know, the public safety folks are very aware of being able to continue to operate if they're severed from the internet. Mm-hmm. So these are all self-contained systems where they continue to operate even if the internet is broken. Mm-hmm. The security around it is whole, so it keeps them safe from external forces. And so
He was going to fix the internet for you.
Right.
it doesn't solve the problem if people try to get in, but.
Yeah. Assistant Chief Frank, did you want to jump in? Okay.
So Mike couldn't have said it better, right?
Yeah.
Next 5 to 6 years, the cloud is a great place to look at. But we all need to remember the cloud is just somebody else's computer.
Yep.
That's what the cloud is, right? It's somebody else's computer. And the way that Mike speaks of islands and the protection of public safety systems, that's what Montgomery County's done a great job of. We are island off from everybody else. So when we do have that bad day, and it's going to happen eventually, that your public safety systems still stay operational. So they've done a really good job of the core CAD, as Mike said, and this is just those things that support the core CAD, like your MDCs, and the things that allow us to get that information out of the CAD while we're in the field. So the cloud's a great option. Right now, the cloud is not FedRAMPed a lot, right? There's a lot of stuff that is FedRAMPed, but not stuff like these core systems. So hopefully 5 to 6 years we'll be there in a more secure environment. We'd love to move there, but right now we want to protect ourselves, and this is the way that we do it.
We appreciate that. I mean, all the things we're talking about today are so important, but the 911 system is so critical. And we know when it does go down, we have problems, how awful it can be. Yeah, Assistant Chief Frank.
The only thing I wanted, everyone's right on point, and again, the security issue. I will tell you, last week with the AT&T failure, so that's one whole radio system down. And the same thing goes with the cloud. If whoever's holding that cloud, name the vendor, if their cloud is attacked, and we actually had this in the county when we talk about telestaff. They had their cloud attacked, and there was an issue, and it put us behind the ball. So that's kind of the thing that we're worried about, and this is the most critical example we have in the county, our infrastructure and dealing with public safety. Additionally, these servers will help us bring online. So 2 years ago, we spent money to get the Motorola Core, which helped us upgrade the Motorola Katz system, which we hadn't been able to do before. So that was a critical update. And then these servers are going to help us bring on more functionality to include video to 911, photos to 911, things that we want to continue down the path that we need to do to advance with technology, because quite honestly, the people that are calling us nowadays are all on cell phone. There's no landlines anymore. So it gives us an opportunity to be even more effective by getting these servers online for little things like that.
Great. Thank you so much. Councilmember Luedtke?
Thank you. So just to make sure I understand this, my understanding is whether you're talking about it being hosted on a local server or whether it's on the cloud, which is truly just a server that's somewhere else, there's sequestration functionality so that if, for example, county government systems have different agencies on the system, you're able to sequester one agency's data from another agency's data, even if the same server is supporting them. Is that right? Okay. And that's true even if it's on the cloud, they can still be sequestered in that way, almost like, the ship's taking on water and you close the door to cordon off that portion of the ship so the water doesn't keep going into the ship, right? Okay.
I don't know if that's going to work, but when we close it.
Well, yeah, maybe not in the ship analogy, but in the IT analogy, it does have some significance. So it's not that we can't do it. And one of the challenges is when you're maintaining servers locally, there's how to say this. There's opportunity for more human error and more of, I think, Council President Friedson used the term bubblegum and duct tape, and I usually call it spit and duct tape happening because of how you're limping along with maintaining the system, where when it's more aggregated, either across an enterprise, if you will, there tends to be more standardized patching, more standardized maintenance, more standardized everything, and pooling of resources. So from your perspective, having locally hosted servers and knowing the level of maintenance and care that is required in order to meet our current cybersecurity standards, is there a benefit to being able to do it in a more aggregated way?
So we do that now, right?
Okay.
And Mike spoke to it, right?
Okay.
We're better than anybody else, I promise you that. And I'm not just saying that because I like.
All right, don't jinx yourself,
So-
you know?
So we do that today with
Right.
the two environments that we have, right? We have
Okay.
the primary environment in Gaithersburg, secondary environment here in Rockville, which both support the primary PSCC and the backup PSCC. Those are
Right.
two separate systems. The two paths shall never touch each other, and if one breaks, the other picks up in that active environment, right? So we do that now, and there's guardrails up in each of these servers and each of these systems so that the police department's information doesn't cross over to the fire department's information
Right.
unless where needed.
Right.
So all those guardrails are in place and they work really, really well. And the two systems, that's what they're designed to do. If our CAD fails at the primary center, it will fail over to the backup center. Same thing with these ancillary servers that support like mobile data computers and all that. If the primary fails, the secondary picks up.
Right.
So we've done a really good job of separating those services to make sure we stay up in times of crisis. Luckily, over the past handful of years, we haven't had to use that. But they're there if we need them, and they work really, really well.
And you test the backups on a
We
regular
do on a
basis.
regular
In
basis.
order to minimize any type of
Right.
impact like that, and it's not to say that it won't happen, but we have a whole change control process that we work with on a regular basis, so the end users and the key stakeholders are involved in those discussions. We also have test systems. We also have staging systems before anything is touched in production. So there's a very defined path to move anything into production to make sure it's tested fully before it's deployed, to minimize or to reduce any risk that may be introduced.
And then, Chief Frank, you mentioned photographic transfers and things like that. And so one question broadly for any of you who can answer it is, are video and or photographic images that are transferred encrypted in flight and at rest in the system? Okay, thank you.
Great. I'm not seeing any other lights or questions, so I think we're good on this one. And then our last item is the public safety system modernization.
Yes, and the last remaining sub-project, and this is the law enforcement records management system, which you've already touched on a bit. This has been an ongoing need. I believe it was first put in 2016. There are a lot of different moving parts. The folks sitting at the table are the operational experts, right? And you need the operational experts to be able to talk to any potential vendors to ensure that they are asking for and receiving exactly what they need to function. There was short staffing in 2016 in that respect. They did go out for a bid, and I believe a contract was awarded in 2022. That vendor did not perform. And so the department has to go out again to search for a different vendor for records management system, and Chief Frank can give you more information on that. But I wanted to highlight for you on page 8, this records management system is an opportunity to just be able to plug into all the different types of data elements that you want. But it also has to perform the law enforcement functions, court case management interface, Delta Plus e-ticks, Delta Plus citations, warnings, ACRs, which are car accidents, different types of traffic stops, the law enforcement information exchange, and of course being able to efficiently report NIBRs reporting on all different crime and online citizen reporting. And again, we also mentioned being able to interface with the arrest booking crims in the jail system. So it would be helpful to better understand the current timeline for the RMS implementation, what portion of the RMS budget has been expended on the current contract, and how might this impact the cost of a future system. Has the scope of the required interfaces changed since the last RFP was issued? And council staff advises that record systems are so critical, as I've stated before, for both ensuring the constitutional protections of justice-involved individuals. I've worked in a jail, doesn't impact the police department, but it impacts records in the jail. I've worked in a jail where somebody got lost in the system because his record did not exist and he did not get released. And so it is so crucial that these systems, for anybody who is touching the justice system, be as accurate and timely as possible. And overall, we were just recommending approval of all the subjects, all the different projects as submitted by the executive. We'll get back on the CRIMS one at a future date. But since these are such important projects and they all interrelate to some extent, I would recommend that the Joint Committee get a detailed update on progress in the fall. So.
Thank you. Anyone want to speak to some of the questions that was raised regarding this last item? Chief Frank?
This one I can speak even more on.
Yeah.
The department took over the procurement of this RMS system in October of 2021. And I will say we've got a lot of fantastic people in-house between TEBS, between Fire Rescue, and also our technology shop. And there were things that we asked for that be in the contract. It took us a year to write a contract. Now, it may seem like a long time, but in our world, in writing a contract that delivers to the public, that's how long it took because we weren't going to give it up. Unfortunately, sometimes life gives you lemons, but I really do think that this is a huge opportunity for the county because, number one, as already been stated, we're parting ways with the current vendor because there are things that just are not being accomplished that would impact what you all expect of us, what our citizens expect of us. But I think it gives us a bunch of huge opportunities because when this first started being procured, as I said before, the technology has changed and there are other players in the market now that didn't exist before. But these players are backed very, very well and are going to be here, I'm talking about the 10-year lifespan, even longer than that, which is critical for us that we have people invested in our future like that in writing an RMS system. So we believe there's options out there that are, number one, much more robust, much more current, and they have seen what has transpired in the public safety environment over the last 4 years and have a better understanding of what we need and what the community expects. So they're writing product to that. So that's going to allow us, going to the timeline, we want to get an RFP out in the next 6 months, and it's going to be quick. Because the benefit is we've been through this, we know what we're looking for, we know what interactions we want to have. NIBRS is a huge part of it. The state has changed their accountability for us as a department. We have to have 100% compliance with NIBRS. And if we don't, that is bad for the county. And it's a very difficult task. So another reason why we need to get the best and the most current system out there. So we've got a 6-month plan. Really what I have seen in the background right now, we're going to save money off of what the other program was. I can't go into anything until an RFP is answered, until we make selections. But I will say the advancements that we've had, the interoperability that we have between different county police systems, there's opportunities out there to save tax dollars with this next RFP and deliver on the things that we've talked about now several times about delivering. Data that can, first of all, when the officers are in the field collecting data, they collect all the data we can think of right off the bat that we're going to want to go to. And it's collected in an easy, seamless way that does not interfere with what the officer's doing, which at the end of the day is just trying to get a situation resolved, collect the appropriate data, and then move on to the next crisis that they need to deal with. We do believe there's opportunity. It'll be quick, this next RFP. It's not going to take us a year to negotiate a contract. So I will say the first update is 6 months, and then after that we're going to build in, again, quickly to get where we need to be to get this RMS system in place. You know, I'd love to say 2 years. My technology friends think I'm a little bit too aggressive at times, but we're going to do it right. Again, it's unfortunate that this is occurring this way. We wanted a system where we didn't have to hand search stuff for Ms. Farag and you all when asked for it. But I do think this is a big opportunity for us to do even better than what we had already planned.
Chair Katz and then Councilmember Luedtke.
Thank you. You know, as disappointing as this is, and it is, I know it's disappointing to us, it really is disappointing to you all. Sometimes there are silver linings to this whole situation. And I was going to say to a cloud, but that would just, really confuse things. But I think that we need to have, if possible, a faster safety valve. Because you had gotten this other vendor and we got further down the road and all of a sudden we realized that this isn't going to work. If we could have a faster safety valve to say that this is or it isn't going to work, if that could be possible, I think that would be something that we should try to get. But, we all need this, and the fact that you had to take your personnel to do a hand search for what information we were asking for today or beyond just doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't work for anybody.
So you bring up a great point as far as our RFP and what we're looking for. We're looking to execute quickly. One of the things that has taken when we originally built this into the other contract is there was a runway to get where we needed to go. We're shortening that runway. And we do believe there's vendors out there that are going to be able to deliver on that. And we'll know, again, the experience was good to have, especially for my new staff that took over. I've got a rock star and a technology director, and she is doing an absolute fantastic job looking out for these concerns. So we're going to have a shorter runway for implementation, which it's not going to put us where we wanted to be, correct. But again, I think we're going to have something better.
Good. Thank you.
Councilmember Luedtke.
Yep, quickly. So understanding that obviously NIBRS have to comply with it, critically important, but we also have other things that are also critically important and tend to adapt more than NIBRS does over time, right? Meaning they layer on other reporting requirements. So whether it's GOCAP or whether it's the Form 11 for the hate crimes stuff, So in what you're seeking now in the RFP to upgrade your records management system, would that give you better functionality? For example, once a Form 11 is completed, that it would auto pull that data back into the records management system so that it's integrated with everything else that's going on?
Yes, ideally, we want a system, really what I'd like to see is a system that takes over a lot of different functions we have. I will say right now we collect data in a number of different ways. There's some things we can't touch. ETICS is controlled by the state, and they collect their own specific data.
Right.
But there's other forms that we have right now internally that what we're looking for in this RFP is a system that can deliver not only RMS, but can deliver other forms and that we are required to fill out now and put it all under one roof where everything goes into the whole system right at the same time. And additionally, speaking to any other state functions we have or county functions, whatever it may be, if there's another, like CRIMS, I'd love to say that we can find in this RFP that we hook up with someone that can do something with CRIMS and assist our partners out there, or at the very least we can get them thinking about it. So in the future they can come to the table with a solution that'll all put us in the same system to make us more efficient. So we're going to be looking for those things.
And is part of the RFP include something that talks about sort of that adaptability piece?
Yes, and the different engines that we've seen over the last 2 years, have that capability and are much more agile. They're based on taking our needs and writing a function to it, but it's in a basic language that you can replicate for this particular issue or you can replicate for that particular issue.
Great, thank you.
Okay, not seeing any other, oh, Seamus, go. Yeah.
One other thing, because you had asked about how much we've expended currently. I don't have the exact number, but I know it was the first milestone payment, which I believe was in the neighborhood of 500 to 700,000 is what has been expended. I think Kathy, I can get the answer from Kathy LaDonna and get it back to you guys pretty quickly.
That'd be great. All right, not seeing any other hands. Before closing out today, I just one other big question. Ms. Frog started this conversation talking about continuity of systems, talking about data user-friendly. We've talked about all of those topics. And I guess the question I have for you is, since you have our GO committee here and public safety, are there other things that all of you need moving forward to ensure these two pieces bigger in the bigger picture? And you don't have to answer today, but I do want to make sure that we get into the weeds, as we said, as was talked about, but that we're also keeping the bigger picture in mind as we move forward, because all of these systems are so critically important for the public safety, but as we've talked about, for also our first responders who are in the field. So I just wanted to give you a moment if there were things that were top of mind. Yeah, Chief Frank.
I think on the data side, which is something, so I've been an executive for a while, and it's surprised me how people ask different questions, and they're great questions. Through the years, I've seen new questions asked, and I'm like, oh, we've never collected that before. One of the things that we're looking to do internally is to look at a data scientist, and I believe I've talked about this before, because, police officers were not built as data scientists, but we know that the information is critically important. And I think if we can build that function out in the police department alone, it would be a great deal, because we'd want to collaborate with council so that we can we can have these questions answered in advance. Because again, what we see, even through the last 3 years, we still get new questions that are great questions, and we just didn't think that someone would ask it in that way, and we didn't have the data. So we want to become more robust in that area, and we're going to make suggestions in the future about how we can get there, so that the other aspect of it, when we produce data, there can be meaning behind it. Very science-based, academic-based, scholarly-based interpretation of that data. So it's a big effort going forward, but I think it'll be of great value to the county, to public safety, that we have that functionality.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so before us, we have the FY 25 to 30 CIP projects. Understanding that we are going to get more information regarding CRIMS, and I think the idea from Ms. Farag about getting an update in the fall on these projects is a good idea. So all those in favor of recommending these projects move forward, raise your hand, and that is unanimous across the two committees. Those are all the updates we have today for this and tasks before us, so we'll call this meeting adjourned, and I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you for your continued work on these issues. And we're done.